Our story kicks off at the edge of Eldbridge, where life in the 1300s was no picnic. Forget Hollywood's endless castle battles. Real dangers were quieter but deadlier. A plague could wipe out half the town before anyone knew why. A failed harvest meant starvation. Thieves weren't after gold. They targeted bread, cheese, or a prized chicken. Court records from 1324 near Eldbridge show most crimes were petty, with 87% of burglaries foiled by a dog's bark or a neighbour's shout. My take: these thieves weren't masterminds. They were hungry locals, pushed by desperation in a world where survival was a daily gamble. If you were wealthy, you might live to 45 or 50, practically ancient then. You ate food that wasn't half-rat, saw doctors who thought leeches cured everything, and lived in a manor with actual walls. Peasants like our farmer John were lucky to hit 35, toiling in fields and sharing one-room homes with pigs and kids. My history professor called this medieval open-plan living. One room for cooking, sleeping, and arguing with your cow. One bizarre court case near Eldbridge accused a woman of turning a neighbour's cow inside out with witchcraft. She didn't, but fear of the supernatural shaped how Eldbridge protected itself. Trade routes added another layer. Eldbridge sat on a path linking London to York, making it a target for bandits, but also a hub for ideas. Merchants brought stories of far-off locks and walls, inspiring local defences. My analysis: this mix of fear, trade and hardship forced Eldbridge to get creative. Security wasn't just about keeping thieves out. It was about trusting your neighbour in a world where danger, from disease to witchcraft rumours, was always lurking. Let's start our journey at Eldbridge's first defence, its mighty walls. As we approach Eldbridge's gates, massive stone walls rise like a fortress. These weren't just piles of rock, they were the town's lifeline, shielding it from chaos. Inspired by York, where walls took 200 years to build, Eldbridge's stood 40 feet high, 10 feet thick, and cost a king's ransom. York's records from 1419 show they spent $300,000 in today's money on repairs. Eldbridge's walls were no cheaper, funded by taxes that sparked grumbles, louder than a modern HOA meeting. These walls did more than block armies. They controlled trade, disease, and even bedtime. Gates slammed shut at dusk, leaving latecomers to camp outside. During plagues, guards turned away sick travellers, though medieval germ theory was more guesswork than science. Walls also shaped Eldbridge's social map. Rich merchants built manors near the town centre, far from breaches, while poorer folks like John lived by the gates, first in the line of fire. It's medieval real estate 101, location equals safety. Compare that to today's gated communities or high-tech condos. Same principle, shinier toys. Walls carried cultural weight too. Eldbridge held festivals celebrating their construction, with music and ale flowing. Some believed walking the walls brought luck. Others whispered the stones held ancient magic. One quirky law, inspired by Chester, allowed the guards to shoot arrows at outsiders after midnight. Don't try it. My take: walls weren't just physical, they were psychological, giving Eldbridge control in a turbulent world. But they also deepened inequality, favouring the rich. Today's security systems, from alarms to private guards, echo that divide. As we leave the walls and head to John's village, let's explore how those without stone fortresses kept safe outside Eldbridge's walls. John's village was a gritty hub of ingenuity. Peasants here had no guards or gold, so they turned everyday things into defences. Dogs were their first line, tough mutts by the door, with yappy ones inside as backup. In 1324, 87% of burglary attempts near Eldbridge failed because of a bark or a neighbour's shout. That's better than my smart doorbell, which once alerted me to a leaf. John's secret weapon was his geese. In 1350, he trained them to guard his barn, tying bells to the door for extra noise. One starry night, a thief crept in, eyeing John's grain sacks. The geese erupted, honking like a medieval alarm, their wings flapping as bells clanged. John, roused from sleep, grabbed his pitchfork, and neighbours poured out, chasing the thief into a muddy ditch. The court, amused, sentenced the thief to tend John's geese for a month. Imagine his face as those birds nipped his heels. My analysis. John's geese show how peasants transformed barnyard chaos into security gold. No coins for a lock. A goose doesn't need a battery to do its job. Another villager, a baker named Edith, got clever in 1372. She rigged a trap door in her shop's floor, covered with straw. A thief sneaking in for her bread fell through, landing in a cellar with no exit. Neighbours found him at dawn, sheepish and covered in flour. The court made him sweep Eldbridge's streets for a month. Stories like Edith's, found in local records, highlight peasant resourcefulness. The village's design was a defence too. Homes were packed so tight, you heard your neighbours' snores or their screams. John strung bells from potsherds or borrowed church bells across his door. One tug, and the village woke. Digs near Eldbridge found these bell systems everywhere, like DIY motion sensors. Compare that to today's apps like Nextdoor, where neighbours share alerts. We've got tech, but do we know our neighbours like John and Edith did? Medieval Uncovered loves these tales because they prove community was the ultimate shield. Let's head to Eldbridge's centre, where locks were the pride of the rich. In Eldbridge's bustling square, merchants like Thomas showed off locks that were practically art. A 1375 dig uncovered Thomas's house, with a lock needing 3 keys in sequence. Forget one, and you're sleeping outside. These locks were status symbols, like a modern Tesla, functional but mostly for flexing. Eldbridge's cathedral, inspired by Durham, had a treasury door requiring 3 monks to unlock simultaneously. Imagine the grumbling if one monk was late. Locksmith guilds added mystique. To join, apprentices crafted masterpiece locks, often puzzles only they could solve, like medieval escape rooms. Guild secrets were guarded fiercer than a dragon's hoard, making locksmiths the tech wizards of their day. My take: locks were about trust as much as safety. In Eldbridge, a key to the city gate meant power. Who you trusted with it was everything. It's like today's biometrics or VPN keys: control access, control security. Back in the village, widow Agnes couldn't afford Thomas's locks. In 1380, she stacked her furniture, oak table, chairs, her husband's heavy chest, against her door each night. One thief, thinking he'd outsmart her, climbed through her window. He didn't expect Agnes's fortress of furniture. Trapped, he couldn't budge the pile, and neighbours nabbed him by dawn. The court ordered him to fix her window and haul firewood for a year, restoring trust. Agnes's story from court records shows the peasant mindset. Work with what you've got. Others followed suit. Some used wooden bars. A farmer in 1342 tied knotted ropes to his door, requiring a specific order to untie. It worked until a wet winter froze them, locking him out for hours. My analysis: these locks, rich or poor, reflect a universal drive to protect what's yours. Medieval Uncovered digs up these stories to show how ingenuity bridged wealth gaps. As night falls, let's follow Eldbridge's watchmen to see how they kept the town safe after dark. As lanterns glow in Eldbridge's foggy streets, the night watch takes over. These weren't burly cops, but locals. Bakers, carpenters, patrolling with clubs and grit. In the 1320s, Eldbridge inspired by London. They trekked 12 miles a night, shouting 10 o'clock and all's well, or whose cow is loose again. One watchman, Peter, had a legendary night in 1389. He caught a bread thief, doused a fire, and helped deliver a baby, earning extra ale and a day off. My take, watchmen were Eldbridge's glue, balancing chaos with community service. Their lanterns weren't for seeing, but for being seen, deterring thieves like a medieval ring camera. Some watchmen, paid in ale, got a bit tipsy, but their shouts kept the town alert. Records show most crimes were small. Stolen cheese, a stray hen. My analysis, the watch wasn't about arrests, but presence, like today's community watch apps that ping you when a stranger's near. When thieves got caught, Eldbridge's justice was creative. In 1360, a man stole his neighbour's door, just the door, claiming it blew into his yard. The judge made him rebuild it and carve an apology, visible to all. Another thief tried a beehive, but got stung into surrender, then tended the bees for a month. My take, this wasn't just punishment, it rebuilt the community, unlike many modern fines that leave victims empty. Court records from 1375 show 60% of crimes were petty theft, proving Eldbridge's defences, dogs, bells, watchmen, worked.